So welcome back. This is Hard Math with Kevin. If you've listened to our previous episodes, you know that our Chief Analytics Officer, Kevin Mabe, has been walking through why a driver analysis and a factor analysis is an important part of the market research process and exactly what pitfalls you might fall into. So with this episode, we're actually going to dive into the findings of the example that we've been working through. And Kevin's going to show specifically why some of the things maybe turned out a little bit different than one would assume. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Kevin.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Drew. So just to review, we've had, over 80% of the people were slightly or strongly satisfied with the overall experience at this event. And we kind of want to understand, what may separate out these two groups, but especially the dissatisfied and neutral groups. We went through the attribute ratings we asked about: breadth of system, cleanliness, fair, staff, and timeliness. We made some presumptions that fairs scored the highest, and so therefore that must be pulling up the overall satisfaction. We made the presumption that breadth of system and staff rated the lowest, and so that must be dragging things down, and that cleanliness and timeliness are kind of middle of the road, and so they look to be correlated in some way, shape, or form. But we also found, through the deeper dive, which is exactly the point of doing all of this, that there were correlations we need to take into account, namely breadth of system and timeliness, which wasn't apparently obvious on the previous slide, staff and cleanliness, which also wasn't previously obvious, and then fairs, which kind of stood on its own, which was pretty much presumed on the previous slide since it rated so highly. So with this information, we're now able to build a statistical model, meaningful model, to understand what drives overall experience. And so with that, these are the results. So Drew, what pops out at you as something you see on here?
I mean, first thing is that fairs, while it looked like such a great thing, is statistically insignificant to the overall experience.
Yes, and so this is exactly the point of doing some of this analysis, is to understand what's driving overall experience. Sure, people are very happy about fairs. It was the highest rated of all the 5 attributes, but it's not statistically significant in actually driving overall experience. So what it may mean, one interpretation is that satisfaction of fairs is table stakes before you even get to overall experience on the transportation system here. So just because it's rated the highest doesn't mean it's a strong driver, and in this case, it's not even statistically significant. Another thing I'll point out, it's pretty crazy. What do you also notice about the 2 lowest scoring attributes, breadth of system and staff?
They actually, so the breadth of system and the, I was going to say the breadth of system and timeliness, the fact that those look the same as staff and cleanliness, but clearly have a very different impact on the overall experience is kind of surprising to me.
Exactly. So that's the other key.
And I guess that means that breadth of system and staff are, while they look the same, they have very different impacts.
Correct. So there's a lot to untangle here. So let's get to it. You pointed out exactly the takeaways here, where breadth of system and staff are the 2 lowest rating, but breadth of system is a bigger driver with over twice the impact as the staff cleanliness factor. Timeliness and cleanliness look the same, but again, timeliness along with breadth of system is twice the impact. And so just because things look the same all up doesn't mean that's what's actually driving the overall experience. So if we had stopped on slide 3, we would make the assumption that fairs was pulling up overall experience, which basically this shows that it's not. We would make the presumption that cleanliness and timeliness were middle of the road, and breadth of system and staff were lowest, and so both of them were pulling things down, which also isn't the case, where breadth of system is driving overall experience or poor experience more so than staff. And so this is kind of the end of the analysis, but this also points to the reason why even something as simple as this survey can highlight an extraordinary amount of information and insights that otherwise wouldn't be seen if you were to just stop at, what's the highest rated attribute and what's the lowest rated.
Well, yeah, Kevin, taking a marketing perspective, I might look at that slide 3 and say, okay, well, hey, we're doing great on fares, so let's make sure that we hammer a message with potential customers about how good our fares are. And then, if we're going to look for areas to improve, well, breadth of system and staff look bad. Breadth of system is obviously pretty expensive to improve, so maybe we just kind of have some turnover with our staff, and maybe some additional training and whatnot. And in that case, I would be sinking money into two areas that not necessarily going to deliver the right results that I'm looking for based on some pretty wrong analysis.
Well, exactly. And had you done so and therefore did another overall experience survey in 3 months and seen no improvement, you'd be disappointed. But you point out actually a very good thing here. Fares may be high satisfaction, but hammering that home isn't going to move the dial. Now, timeliness and breadth of system are the largest drivers of overall experience. It is true that breadth of system is expensive, but it is worth your money to move that rather than staff. And timeliness is, it's middle of the road, so people aren't overly dissatisfied with it. So timeliness would be a message that you can hammer home to say, hey, we're on time, and that's the marketing message, knowing that perception about timeliness is in fact correlated very strongly with overall experience. So you invest your money in the breadth of system, invest your messaging on the timeliness, and then those are the top two drivers of overall experience.
Yeah, that's great. That's phenomenal stuff. So, Kevin, thank you so much. This is really insightful and certainly a great kind of cautionary tale for why you don't jump as soon as you get the data back from any type of feedback survey. You're going to want to take the time to do some real analysis of it so that you invest your money wisely.
Most definitely.
Thanks, and looking forward to the next episode with you, my friend.
Awesome. Thanks again, Drew.